Good morning. We had in the past talked about a few traits which are important for a good leader. We covered a few things like focus, simplicity, big picture, and communication. Today, we will talk about improvement orientation as one characteristic any leader should have. We know that many companies have various improvement initiative programs in different names and different heads. For example, Kaizen schemes, suggestion schemes, cost or weight reduction programs, cycle time reduction programs, design optimization programs. Many of them would be going across organizations, and many of them are also used to motivate the people to participate in various improvement initiatives. What is important for the leader is to make this improvement orientation as a characteristic of the organization across from top to bottom. What I meant by this is that it is not a program. It has to be a normal routine characteristic of every person involved in the company. And each and every person should be always be thinking of improving whatever he or she is doing. And did we improve since what we had done yesterday? I would like to put an example which I have heard from Mr. Uday Parikh. Some of you would know Mr. Uday Parikh is a well-known HR gurus in the country. Of course, he passed away a few years ago. So he was talking about an example of when he came to visit Hyderabad to meet Mr. Raju. Mr. Raju is the chairman of Nagarjuna Group that time. Mr. Raju sent his own car with his driver to pick up Mr. Uday Parikh. So Mr. Uday Parikh, as he was traveling in the car, started conversing with the driver. His name is Ismail. So he asked him as to how does he work, what does he do, how many hours he works, a typical conversation Uday Parikh ji has started. And Mr. Ismail was talking about how good his company is and how much he contributes to the company and how he keeps on working very, very efficiently. Mr. Uday Parikh was quite surprised because, after all, he is only a driver and what contributions he can actually bring to the company. So he further inquired, what is that you have done to contribute to the company's improvements and success? He said, Mr. Ismail replied, sir, I am a driver of Mr. Raju, and Mr. Raju keeps visiting many places in the city, various meetings or various offices or various factories and all that. And what I do is that once I drop Mr. Raju in the portico when he gets down and walks into a hotel, for example, for a meeting, I, after parking the car, will be standing continuously in such a way that the moment Mr. Raju comes out, I take the car and pick him up immediately. I see that he doesn't waste his time by waiting for the car. So that is my objective, to see that the waiting time of Mr. Raju for his car after the meeting is over is bare minimum. Therefore, I stand and keep watching at the exit of the hotel to see that the moment he is there, then I run and get the car. Well, Mr. Uday Parikh is very, very impressed because Mr. Ismail also considers himself as having the capability to contribute to the company's success and growth and well-doing. Yeah, the meeting was over, and then Mr. Uday Parikh, Mr. Raju mentioned him that this is what I heard from your driver, and that is something which is very great. Mr. Raju said, yes, that guy is very, very committed, and most of my employees, we drive them towards improving continuously and improve their productivity and contribution. Mr. Parikh was very, very happy to hear all that. And of course, their scheduled meetings and were over. Sometime later, about 3 months later, Mr. Parikh again came to Hyderabad, again to meet Mr. Raju, and again Mr. Ismail were there to pick Mr. Parikh. And this time, Mr. Parikh, knowing Ismail very well from the past meeting, asked him, "No, what have you done in the last 3 months better than what you were doing before?" He said, "Yes, sir, I've improved my process." He said that earlier, when Mr. Raju comes out of the hotel at the exit gate, I watch him and rush to get the car and see that the time of waiting of Mr. Raju was minimum. To make it better, now I do a different thing. What typically happens in parkings of all these hotels is that you go park your car where there's an empty slot. Now, what I do is that I also keep watching the parking. And as time goes on, many more slots will fall vacant in the parking. I keep shifting the car from the farthest place where I park to the closer place, closer slot, empty slot. Again, I will move closer so that the moment I see Mr. Raju, now I do not have to go to long distance to bring the car, but I go to the shortest distance to bring the car so that the time of waiting is further reduced for Mr. Raju. Uday Parikh is absolutely impressed. The meaning of this example is that everyone in the organization can do wonderful work in terms of improving and improving and improving. And the leader has an important role to inculcate such a characteristic across the organization. And that becomes definitely the leader's responsibility. One small thought on this. Improvements, yes, there are Kaizens, other schemes which we have, and they are also largely used to motivate the people. But there are two important things which have to be always remembered is that, at least at the leadership and senior level, is that you have to distinguish between improvements which are routine in nature and improvements which are sustainable. Because let's say, for example, in a crisis situation, you do a lot of cost cuttings. We keep hearing on the TV even today. Thanks to COVID, we have cut down the travel, we cut down the meetings, we cut down customer interactions and all that. But once COVID is over, all of them will come back because for business sustenance, you may still have to do all those things, right? So therefore, the question comes is that the improvement that we are talking about, are they sustainable over a long period of time? And that's very important. So because, as we would say, and we'd hear from others too, that why should we only improve when there's a crisis? You have to improve on a sustainable basis anytime and every time. There's a saying, I used to hear this from one of my bosses, Mr. M. Subramaniam, that we should sweat more when there is peace. We should sweat more when there is peace so that we bleed less when there is war. What it means is that when things are normal and all right, we should still struggle and stretch ourselves to improve the operations such that when there's a real crisis, we are ready to handle that. Yeah. So that is, therefore, you have to focus whether our improvement efforts are on sustainable improvement, which is available for a long time to come. That's one. Number two is that many improvements, in my opinion, there's nothing called a recurring saving or recurring improvement, recurring benefit from an improvement. Because in the end of the day, we are doing all these improvements for the ultimate purpose of giving our stakeholders, shareholders, our owners, long-term, sustainable growth and benefit. So therefore, it is important that what we do has to be always benchmarked with what the competitor is doing also. I can give an example here that in L&T, in cement, when I was head of materials in one of the plants in Maharashtra, I have another factory of Birlas at that time. It's called Manikghat Cement, which is about 8 kilometers from my factory. Now, this was the time of when L&T was thinking of divesting cement business. And one of the potential investors and their consultant, McKinsey, some representatives of them had come and were interacting with me. And I took a long time to explain to them as to all improvement that I have done for a period of time to reduce cost of materials. In this case, as an example, coal, how did we optimize the mines, quality, the distances, and all that. He heard all that and, well, I mean, he nodded, yes, fine. But one of the important cost elements for coal is transportation. And we being very close to the coal mines, so the transportation here is by road. So this gentleman has asked me that your competitor, Manikghat Cement, who is about 8 kilometers from your factory, now the coal truck, when it travels from a mine to you, is Manikghat Cement on the way of the coal transportation or is it away? What it means is that whether suppose your coal truck is traveling 40 kilometers, for him, will it be 32 kilometers or is it 48 kilometers? I said it is 32 kilometers. Then he said, then by your competitor has an inherent advantage of the 8 kilometers additional transportation that you are facing and he doesn't have to do that. Which means that whatever you do, cost saving here in your company, unless it is more and more than that differential of that 8 kilometers additional transportation cost, then only it makes sense, because end of the day, you have to do better than the competitor, which to sum up, for example, whatever is the amount of cost reduction or improvement that you do in your company, number one, it has to be not the absolute reduction that you have done. It has to be compared with what cost reduction the competitor has done. And have you done higher than that or have you done lower than that? If you've done better than that, only the differential improvement is to be actually measured and seen as the improvement. Yeah. So this is first point. So therefore, you have to compare with the competitor. Another one is none of these improvement that you had done, very soon the competitor also will catch up. I would go to another example where we were working to the central supply chain, again in cement. We had gone to South Africa and tied up with some mines for getting coal, imported coal those days for our Gujarat plant in a very innovative way, which would give us always a benefit compared to the other competitors. At one point of time, we made arrangements. But, well, it will not be a secret, right? When you're sourcing from some another country and there's so many other logistic partners, everybody will be watching you if you're a leading company in the country. Your competitors will be definitely watching. So therefore, that improvement that I would have done or we would have done as a company and the saving that we have got is only to be considered as a saving for 1 year because the competitor also will catch up. Very often we hear this when we are reviewing improvements in designs. Somebody would say that, see, sir, I've improved my design, therefore the cost of my manufacturing would come down by so much. But the other competitor also is working on cost reductions and design improvements. The important, therefore, is how much differential positive improvement that you have done with respect to the competitor. So I think all leaders, to sum up, should work on, number one, inculcate a culture of improvement across the company, all the people involved, including your customers, including your vendors, including your partners and your employees, everyone. And everybody should be thinking of doing something better than yesterday. That is inculcating that culture across the company. And number two is all improvements should be measured with respect to the competitor, what has they done and what we have done. And number three is that there's nothing called recurring improvement, because sooner or later, the competitor also will catch up. So with this, I end my discussion on improvement orientation. Thank you, Sunil.